What Taehyung said at Paradise Art Night made Jungkook cry in his arms. It began with a silence that didn't feel like silence at all. The room was filled with music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses, yet in one corner of Paradise Art Night, there was a stillness, almost as if time itself paused. People would later whisper that in that moment, something happened that no one expected. They would say it wasn't the paintings, the music, or even the grand setting that stole the night. It was the words of Kim Taehyung, words so personal, so moving, that they reduced Jungkook to tears in his arms. But before we get to that unforgettable scene, we need to step back. Paradise Art Night wasn't just an event. It was a gathering of artists, creators, and visionaries from around the world. Celebrities walked in dressed in their finest, critics prepared to dissect every detail, and photographers stood ready to capture fleeting moments. But among all the glamour and glitz, two names carried a weight that turned heads the moment they appeared: Taehyung and Jungkook. Together, they represented more than music. They represented a movement, a bond, and a kind of authenticity that no branding manual can fully explain. Taehyung entered the venue with his quiet elegance. He was composed, almost understated, yet impossible to overlook. His fashion was simple but sophisticated, reflecting the kind of branding genius that doesn't scream, but whispers with impact. Beside him, Jungkook, the youngest of BTS, carried that magnetic presence that makes people turn before they even realize why. There was a spark in his eyes, the kind that mixes confidence with vulnerability, and fans around the world know, when Jungkook feels something deeply, it shows. The night was meant to celebrate art in all its forms, but no one expected that the most powerful masterpiece wouldn't be on a canvas or a stage. It would come from Taehyung's voice. As the evening unfolded, Taehyung was invited to speak. At first, he hesitated. Public speeches were never about showing off for him. They were about meaning. And when he finally stepped onto the small stage, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations stopped, cameras focused, and even those who weren't fans leaned in. There was something about his presence that demanded respect. He began softly, almost like he was letting the words form for the first time. He spoke about art not just as beauty, but as a bridge, something that connects people who may never meet, who may never share the same language, but who feel the same heartbeat through a painting, a song, a performance. He spoke about how fame often strips away humanity, how success can sometimes feel like a heavy mask, but art restores the truth. And then his voice grew deeper. He shifted his gaze, and though he addressed the entire room, it felt like his words were directed at one person: Jungkook. The words were simple, yet they carried weight. Sometimes, the world will only see you as an icon. But I see you as my brother, my friend, my inspiration. The room gasped, not because of the language itself, but because of the intimacy behind it. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't polished, it was raw honesty. Jungkook, who had been standing near the stage, froze. His eyes welled with tears before he could stop them. It was the kind of emotion that couldn't be staged or rehearsed. He moved forward, almost instinctively, and when Taehyung stepped down, Jungkook embraced him tightly, burying his face against Taehyung's shoulder. Cameras flashed, but even they couldn't capture the depth of that moment. This wasn't just about friendship. This was about growth, about resilience, about the cost of being in the spotlight. Jungkook's tears weren't weakness, they were evidence of strength. In a world where idols are expected to be flawless, he showed that vulnerability is not a flaw, but a form of courage. And in that embrace, millions watching later would find a reflection of their own struggles, the reminder that even the strongest need someone to lean on. Now, let's pause here, because this is where the story becomes more than just an emotional encounter between two global stars. This is where it teaches us something about value, branding, and human connection. For years, brands and businesses have tried to replicate what BTS has: global reach, unmatched loyalty, and emotional resonance. But what most fail to understand is that the true secret is authenticity. Taehyung and Jungkook didn't plan this moment for publicity. They didn't choreograph the tears or stage the embrace. It happened because it was real. And that's exactly why it will be remembered. Think about it. In a world flooded with advertisements, influencers, and carefully curated images, what stands out is not perfection but sincerity. People don't just follow a product or a name. They follow a story, a feeling, a bond they can relate to. When Taehyung spoke and Jungkook cried, ARMY didn't just see their idols, they saw themselves. That's why the clip of that embrace spread like wildfire across social media, sparking discussions far beyond the K-pop world. It became not only entertainment news, but also a study in branding done right. And here's the teaser I promised you earlier. What Taehyung whispered to Jungkook in that embrace is something very few people actually heard. Some say it was a reminder to stay strong, others claim it was a promise about the future, and a few insist it was a secret only the two of them will ever know. That mystery keeps the moment alive, fueling curiosity, keeping fans engaged, and proving once again that sometimes the most powerful brand strategy is to leave space for wonder. As the night continued, the energy shifted. The art on the walls seemed to glow brighter, the music carried a deeper resonance, and even those who weren't fans found themselves touched. It wasn't just an event anymore, it was a memory, a turning point, a story people would tell again and again. For Taehyung, it was a reminder that words have the power to heal. For Jungkook, it was a release, a chance to let the world see not just the golden magne, but the human behind the fame. And for ARMY, it was proof that their love, their loyalty, was anchored in something genuine. When we think about legacy, we often think of records broken, awards won, or stages filled. But sometimes, legacy is a quiet moment, a tear shed, a hug given. Taehyung and Jungkook may not have planned for this to become legendary, but that's exactly why it is. And here lies the greatest lesson, not just for fans, but for anyone striving to grow, build, or succeed. Whether you're creating art, running a business, or building your personal brand, remember this. People may forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So as you reflect on this story, let it remind you of the power of connection. Let it remind you that vulnerability is not the opposite of strength, it's the foundation of it. And let it remind you that in a world obsessed with noise, sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer is authenticity. This was more than a speech, more than a hug, more than tears. It was a moment that redefined what it means to be human in the spotlight. And if you've stayed with me until now, here's your invitation. Don't just watch stories like this, live them. Carry the lesson of Taehyung and Jungkook into your own life. Be real, be bold, and don't be afraid to show the world your heart, because in the end, that's the kind of story worth remembering. At Paradise Art Night, the crowd expected glamour, but no one expected tears. When Taehyung took the stage, his words carried more than elegance, they carried truth. He spoke of art as connection, of fame as both blessing and burden, and then turned his words toward Jungkook. "You're not just an icon, you're my brother," he said. In that instant, Jungkook's composure broke. With tears streaming, he embraced Taehyung tightly, and the world watched in silence. That moment wasn't staged, it was raw, human, unforgettable. It reminded fans and even businesses worldwide that authenticity is the greatest power. In a world full of noise, sincerity builds the strongest bonds, and that's why this embrace will be remembered.